Fort Drum troops. They are the defenders of our freedom. They are our friends. They are our neighbors. On March 17th, State Senator Patty Ritchie welcomed 10th Mountain Division Commanding General Major Stephen Townsend, as well as more than 4 troops to 10th Mountain Division in Fort Drum Day. The event, which is in its 4th consecutive year, honors Fort Drum soldiers for their sacrifices and aims to educate lawmakers about the vital importance of the post. Highlights included Fort Drum's color guard opening up the day's Senate session, followed by an address by General Townsend, who spoke about the unique relationship between Fort Drum and the local community.
When we deploy overseas, we don't worry about what's happening on the home front. I tell folks all the time, when I was deployed last year to Afghanistan for almost 10 months, I never once looked back over my shoulder and wondered what was happening at Fort Drum. I knew that our soldiers back there and our families were going to be well taken care of by the folks at Fort Drum and by the North Country community.
During the Senate session, Senator Ritchie recognized the men and women of the 10th Mountain Division with an official Senate resolution and presented each soldier with a challenge coin to remember the special day.
To General Townsend and your troops who are assembled here today, you should know that we stand behind you. I want to thank you for being here and thank you for your service.
The day also included exhibits hosted by 10th Mountain Division soldiers, as well as local organizations supporting Fort Drum, a special briefing for lawmakers about the post, and meetings with state leaders throughout the day. Year after year, 10th Mountain Division and Fort Drum Day has allowed people to learn about the mission of the 10th Mountain Division and the critical importance of the installation, not just the North Country, but the entire state and nation. We will forever be grateful for the contributions of our 10th Mountain Division soldiers, as well as their families. Climb to glory.
Posting of the color guard. The Senate will come to order. I ask everyone present to please rise and repeat with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today, we are joined by Reverend Andrew Nuez, Senior Pastor of Believers Mennonite Garfuna Ministries from the Bronx. He will give our invocation.
Eternal God, the creator of this universe, the God that loves us and cares for us, Lord, we thank you for bringing us here together to give you honor and give you glory and to recognize your presence in our celebration today. We thank you and bless every senator and every congregation and every community that they represent. Nugu she celebrate, sereme diblago wele biche won, sereme lago sun kate anuga flas. Be father nugu she ida go ma luwa duga le sun kate lo wiche were gonna lobo bilin le sun kate waduga. Which is sunkate lila biri, lila livre to Christo, renga iterala. May God bless you. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Nunes. We'll have a reading of the journal.
In Senate, Monday, March 16th, the Senate met pursuant to adjournment. The Journal of Sunday, March 15th is read and approved on motion. Senate adjourned.
Without objection, the Journal stands approved as read. Presentation of the petitions. Messages from the Assembly. Messages from the Governor. Reports of standing committees. Reports of selected committees. Communications and reports from state officers. Motions and resolutions.
And then when does he speak?
Floor Leader, Senator Libous.
Mr. President, thank you. I'd like to adopt the resolution calendar with the exception of Resolution 936 by Senator Diaz, 976 by Senator Serino, and 986 by Senator Stewart Cousins. If we could have those not passed at this time, but do the entire calendar, the resolution calendar at this time.
All in favor of adopting the resolution calendar with the exception of resolutions 936, 976, 986, signified by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution calendar is adopted. Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, could we take up a previously adopted resolution by Senator Ritchie? It would be number 833. I'd like it read in its entirety. I would then call on Senator Skelos and then Senator Ritchie to speak on the resolution.
The Secretary will read.
Legislative Resolution number 833 by Senator Ritchie, memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim March 17, 2015 as 10th Mountain Division and Fort Drum Day in the state of New York. Whereas Fort Drum is located in Jefferson County in northern New York and is the largest military installation in the northeastern United States. And whereas Fort Drum is named for Lieutenant General Hugh Drum, a decorated national hero, former commander of the First Army and an early leader of the state's own volunteer militia, the New York Guard. And whereas for 30 years Fort Drum has been home of the United States Army's storied 10th Mountain Division. And whereas the 10th Mountain Division includes the Army's most deployed combat units, serving with honor, distinction, and great sacrifice as part of Operation Enduring Freedom, and other actions central to our nation's response to the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001. And whereas elements of the 10th Mountain Division based at Fort Drum in New York State were first to be deployed in the aftermath of those attacks, and 13 years later, the last units to return from combat duty. So for the first time in more than a decade, nearly all of Fort Drum's soldiers and officers are back at home in New York State. And whereas 323 brave men and women who were members of the 10th Mountain Division and based at Fort Drum gave their lives in the cause of defeating global terrorism. And whereas the distinguished service of units posted to Fort Drum has been celebrated by presidents, members of Congress, and members of the international community. And whereas in addition to its vital role in our nation's defense, Fort Drum is the largest single-site employer in the state of New York and an economic engine for the state and region, with a direct impact of more than $1.2 billion in 2014 and more than $20 billion since the reactivation of the 10th Mountain Division at Fort Drum. And whereas the 18,000 soldiers and officers of Fort Drum and their families are an integral part of the community and are welcomed as neighbors, co-workers, classmates, friends, and fellow New Yorkers. And whereas the Army Command is presently reviewing the status of military facilities around the globe and will soon make recommendations which will impact the future of Fort Drum and surrounding communities. And whereas it is the sense of this legislative body to salute the soldiers and officers of the 10th Mountain Division, to honor their dedication to preserving our freedom and our nation, and to recognize their individual and collective contributions to our communities in the New York State. And whereas Fort Drum has and will continue to play an important and essential role in ensuring our nation's military readiness to defend our state and nation against hostility and threats to our safety and national security. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this legislative body pauses deliberations to memorialize Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim March 17, 2015 as 10th Mountain Division and Fort Drum Day in the state of New York, and be it further resolved that copies of this resolution suitably engrossed be transmitted to the Honorable Andrew M. Cuomo, Governor of the state of New York, Major General Stephen J. Townsend, Commanding General of Fort Drum, the 10th Mountain Division, the Honorable John M. McHugh, Secretary of the Army, and members of Congress representing the state of New York.
I'll now call on Senator Skelos.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and congratulating you on, I think, presiding for the first time. And as Senator Terrence Murphy, also wishing you a happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you very much, Senator.
We're truly honored today to have the Commanding General of the 10th Mountain Division, Major General Stephen Townsend, visiting with us today, along with several of his service colleagues from Fort Drum. I had the opportunity to chat with the General earlier. He reminded me that he was here 2 years ago, and last year that he was in Afghanistan. He also indicated better in Albany than in Afghanistan, and I think we can all appreciate that. I also want to thank Senator Patty Ritchie for helping to arrange their visit. She is truly one of your biggest champions, and for good reason. The 10th Mountain Division has an incredible history of defending our country and fighting for freedom around the world. Your presence here reminds us how lucky we are as Americans to have brave young men and women dedicating their lives to protecting us. New York is especially fortunate to have such an outstanding base located at Fort Drum. And now more than ever, it's critical that our state fights to support you. Fort Drum plays a vital role in our nation's defense and is also a significant contributor to our state's economy, particularly in the North Country. I want you to know that the Senate supports you and that we are committed to helping Fort Drum avoid cutbacks that would threaten the future of the base and surrounding communities. We appreciate your service and want everyone serving at Fort Drum to know how proud we are of them and of their service. I thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Senator Skelos. I'll now call on Senator Ritchie.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's an honor to welcome the 10th Mountain Division, led by Commanding General Stephen Townsend. Today we are recognizing Fort Drum, the largest military installation in the Northeast United States. It's our state's largest single-site employer, with 18,000 soldiers and more than 3,000 civilian employees, home to the Army's most deployed combat unit. It was exactly 30 years ago when the 10th Mountain Division arrived at Fort Drum. At that time, sitting in my chair was Senator John McHugh, who is now the Secretary of the Army. Since then, Fort Drum has grown, along with the entire North Country community around it, with new schools, hospitals, housing, infrastructure, new businesses and jobs that support our troops and their families. We are proud of Fort Drum's past. But Fort Drum Day is also a chance to look to the future. Later this week, Army brass will be at Drum to listen to the public's comments on the plan, a plan that will reduce America's fighting forces to pre-World War II levels. At Fort Drum, this could mean a reduction as much as 95%. I will be at the listening session, and I will share with the Army the resolution we just heard. I will tell them that we in the Senate are proud to have supported Fort Drum's growth and about our commitment to the post-future. I will tell them about the laws we passed in a bipartisan fashion to support our troops and our veterans. And I will tell them about the special place that Fort Drum soldiers hold in the hearts of all New Yorkers. A bond that was forged after September 11th when the 10th Mountain Division, soldiers from New York's own Fort Drum, were the Army's first to deploy in the global war on terrorism. And how these brave men and women are preparing right now to respond once again to defend our nation from more dangerous threats that are growing all around us every single day. To General Townsend and your troops who are assembled here today, you should know that we stand behind you. I want to thank you for being here and thank you for your service. Among those that are in the chamber today are 3 New Yorkers: Sergeant Jacob Guyman from Plattsburgh, Private First Class Tyler Seeley from North Syracuse, Lieutenant Colonel Tage Rainsford from Trumansburg. We are also joined by my good friend, is he still behind me? Senator Jim Wright, who once also sat in this chair. And we're also joined by Brigadier General Mike Sweezy. In the gallery, we are joined by Anthony Pileggi, Anthony is here representing Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. We certainly support the Congresswoman's support to our troops and also for Fort Drum. Anthony, thank you for being here. And we also are joined with representatives from our local community who are out working each and every day, helping make sure that we support the troops and making their lives as good as possible for them when they're home and also their families when their loved ones are away. Those individuals have been here all day educating us so we know what Fort Drum really means to all of us. I want to take a moment to thank our leader, Senator Skelos, along with Senator Klein and Senator Stewart Cousins for meeting with the General this afternoon. I also want to thank our military veterans who serve in the Senate, especially Colonel Senator Larkin. So we would be remiss if we didn't single you out. And each and every one of my colleagues for the support you have shown our military, our veterans, and also Fort Drum. In closing, I just want to take a moment to mention the challenge coins that are on your desk. Challenge coins date back to ancient Roman legions. In today's Army, they are usually presented by commanders to signify a specific achievement. I was presented the coin by then Commanding General Mark Milley, who was here at our first Fort Drum Day after being elected to the Senate. The General told me I'd completed one challenge, and now the challenge was to represent my constituents, and that's what I'm doing here today. I'm presenting each one of you with a challenge coin to honor our soldiers and also to thank you for stepping up and standing with me to help protect Fort Drum. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Ritchie. Next, I'd like to, Senator Little.
I too would like to welcome General Townsend and all of our military people who are here today. And I'm very proud to recognize Sergeant Guimond, who is from Plattsburgh, New York, and proud to represent him and know of his service. I'd also like to recognize the fact that Senator Ritchie is the one who began this Fort Drum Day and helps us all understand the meaning of Fort Drum and its importance to New York State, as well as the importance of the 10th Mountain Division and what their role has been in the last years. They have really borne the brunt of the service in Afghanistan and Iraq and have lost many members. But these are men and women who do not hesitate to put themselves in harm's way. And we're all fortunate to have them among us and really honored to be in their presence here today. So thank you for being with us. And thank you to Senator Ritchie and Senator Skelos for allowing us to have a Fort Drum Day here. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Little. Senator Libous.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would ask that we would allow, on unanimous consent, Major General Stephen Townsend to address the body, and then we would let, after his remarks, we would let other members who want to speak on the resolution to stand and speak on the resolution while it's still open on the floor. So, Mr. President, at this time, could we hear from Major General Stephen Townsend?
General? Right up here, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure. Good afternoon. Happy St. Patty's Day. Oh, there's got to be more energy here than that. Happy St. Patty's Day. I'm a general. When I say good afternoon, you all say good afternoon back. Today we're all Irishmen, right? And we're also all members of Fort Drum in the 10th Mountain Division here today. So thank you, Mr. President. Senator Skelos and Klein, Stewart Cousins, and Senator Ritchie, and all of you who are here today. Thanks for inviting all of us down here today for Fort Drum Day. On behalf of the almost 20,000 soldiers of the 10th Mountain Division and Fort Drum, thanks for allowing us this opportunity to address this gathering, to provide you with an update on your 10th Mountain Division. And but first, before I go into that, a few words of thanks to Senator Ritchie and her staff. Thanks again for making this possible for now 4 years in a row, and I think it's a thing we ought to sustain. To all the veterans who are here today out of uniform, right? It's easy to see those of us in uniform, but I know there are many veterans here today out of uniform. Thank you for your service and the support that you've given to our nation and this next greatest generation of Americans who are protecting our nation today. To the friends, families, and supporters of the 10th Mountain Division, without you, it would make what our soldiers do at Fort Drum and overseas that much more difficult. As you heard last year at this time, I was with our division headquarters and other elements of the 10th Mountain Division in Afghanistan. This was for the division headquarters the 6th deployment since 2001. 5 of those deployments were in Afghanistan. Over the last 18 months, the entire 10th Mountain Division was deployed to Afghanistan. Those deployments started in 2013 and ended right at the end of 2014, with our headquarters being one of the last elements to come back home. Personally, I thought this was a fitting end to Operation Enduring Freedom. We've concluded U.S.-led combat operations in Afghanistan. The 10th Mountain Division was the first Army division to deploy to Afghanistan in 2001, and it was fitting, I thought, that we were the last U.S. division conducting combat operations in Afghanistan in 2014 as we brought Operation Enduring Freedom to a close. All of our brigades have deployed multiple times during this war. As I speak to you today, however, the 10th Mountain Division finds itself at home, all at the same time, for one of the few times in the past 14 years. But even as I say that, there's still about 70 soldiers deployed overseas. So even when we're all back, we're never really all back. We still have small units and individuals today supporting operations around the world, not only in Afghanistan, but also in the Sinai, Kosovo, Central America, Europe, and the Middle East. Today, our soldiers continue to conduct tough and realistic training for any possible mission that our nation may call on us to perform. One very important reason that we're able to conduct this kind of training is the fantastic facilities and training areas that we have available to us at Fort Drum. Fort Drum is one of the few places in our Army, with Alaska being really the only other one, where we can conduct extreme cold weather training. New York's North Country breeds tough people, and it also breeds tough soldiers too. The past 2 winters have definitely proved that. Our Army needs to maintain that expertise, and Fort Drum will allow our Army to do just that. A great example of our capabilities occurred during the blizzards of this past January. Our 1st Brigade combat team was deploying from our airfield at Fort Drum on a major training exercise in Louisiana. The conditions were so bad that the governor shut down the interstates here in New York. But we still deployed soldiers from our airfield. Other bases in America were closing because they might get snow. We were launching plane loads of troops in the middle of a blizzard. That's what your Fort Drum can do. Another important reason we're so well prepared to answer the nation's call is because of the superb support we get from our North Country neighbors. While most Army posts have their own hospitals, Fort Drum does not. We rely on the local community for almost all of our health care. We don't house all of our troops and families. About 60% of our married soldiers live off base in the community. Most Army bases have schools for their children. Fort Drum does not. Our kids go to school with the other children in the North Country community. In fact, This year's New York State Championship football team from Indian River High School was comprised of over half military dependents. New York's 10th Mountain Division is good for New York, the state. Our base brings right at $1.3 billion to the region in direct economic contributions. 80% of that $1.3 billion is payroll. It's coming from our soldiers' paychecks, and it's mostly being spent in a local economy. The federal government adds almost $57 million to the region's health care. The entire community benefits from that, not just the soldiers. The federal government adds $36 million to the region's schools. The entire community benefits from that, not just the soldiers and the children. When we deploy overseas, we don't worry about what's happening on the home front. I tell folks all the time, when I was deployed last year to Afghanistan for almost 10 months, I never once looked back over my shoulder and wondered what was happening at Fort Drum. I knew that our soldiers back there and our families were going to be well taken care of by the folks at Fort Drum and by the North Country community. This Friday, our community will have an opportunity to highlight for the Army these special relationships and unique capabilities during this community listening session that I will host. Fort Drum will be one of the last Army installations to undergo this process to hold one of these events. It'll provide an opportunity for our community and this state to make sure the Army is properly informed as they make future decisions about possible troop reductions. And make no mistake, if sequestration stays in effect, there will be troop reductions on a major scale. So what does the future look like? I look around the world and I see commitments for our armed forces increasing. I see real threats in this world. You only have to look at Iraq and Syria and the Ukraine and Africa. I could go on. There will be demands for our nation's leadership. I see these threats in Syria. I see these threats in Europe. I see our continuing campaign in Afghanistan. Just a few weeks ago, the Army announced that our 2nd Brigade would deploy to Afghanistan this summer. Other elements of our division continue to prepare for other future missions. The bottom line is, your division at Fort Drum will continue to be very involved in Afghanistan and around the world. I also think there's some risks. As I stand before you today, I can think the biggest risk I can think of is sequestration. Over the last 3 years, the active Army has dropped about 80,000 soldiers to 490,000 by the end of this year. Now, I think that's appropriate. We had grown to meet the demands of the war, and those demands now are less. Our current glide path is going to take us to a force, an Army of about 450,000. I think Secretary McHugh, if he were here, would tell you that that's probably the number that can just meet our national security strategy. So I'm concerned about how we're investing in our nation's defense. With the return of sequestration, Army planners are already saying we'll have to go to 420,000, maybe lower. Some of the numbers that are being tossed about would make us smaller than we were before Pearl Harbor in 1941. That's what worries me. I'd like to close by saying Fort Drum and its soldiers continue to feel the support, not only of our local community, but also from the state of New York as a whole. I would be remiss if I did not thank the governor for his recently announced pledge of $1.5 million to increase Fort Drum's buffer zone and $25 million for improvements to the state's road infrastructure around the base. This is the signal I think you send to the Army. You're putting your money where it matters. I commend you all for that. Many among you have been vocal supporters of Fort Drum and the 10th Mountain Division as the Army looks for ways to downsize. But rest assured, your support and your gestures and your thanks don't go unnoticed or unappreciated. Next week, I'll be relinquishing command of this great division and bid farewell to Fort Drum and the North Country. I'd like to personally thank New York for all of its support during my 3 tours at Fort Drum. As an honorary New Yorker, I also have the governor to thank for that distinction. I can honestly say that my wife Melissa and I will certainly miss Fort Drum, the North Country, and the great state of New York. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for this opportunity to address this assembly. Please remember in your thoughts and prayers America's sons and daughters, still deployed in harm's way around the world, standing watch on the walls at night so we can sleep peacefully in our beds, preserving our freedom and our way of life. Climb to glory. Thank you.
General Townsend and Fort Drum, our wishes are with you. Thank you for your dedication and service. We appreciate it. Senator DeFrancisco.
You know, this political business is sometimes very frustrating, and I'm sure more frustrating for the people who serve in the military. Because if you looked at something like we're going through now, the reduction in forces, decisions about bases, you would think that the basis for determining where the reductions are, what bases are downside, would be one based on merit, as opposed to the politics of Washington or the politics of Albany in some cases. But unfortunately, it isn't. The fact of the matter is that if the government decided these things on merit, what group of individuals, other than the 10th Mountain Division, have proven their worth to this country? What has done more for this country than the 10th Mountain Division? For 14 years, where everybody that was stationed there went overseas at least one, usually more than one tour of duty. The sacrifices that they made and of their family and the successes they have had are amazing. So, my thought would be this, that every person in this chamber should be contacting their senators and their Congress representatives and making a cogent, strong argument based on merit where we retain the 10th Mountain Division, keep that wonderful base active in the North Country, and make sure that we repay them and are telling them that we know you deserve this based on merit, and we're all going to be behind you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Larkin.
Mr. President, you know, those of you who were around today when some of the discussions were going on about the 10th, and every time you heard General Townsend speak, you know that he had his heart, his whole Army heart for New York. This is an individual who's had 4 trips across the pond. Those of you who are wondering, when you look at his right arm, I think it's still the right arm, I've been retired too long, General. Each one of those slashes means 6 months in combat. That's 4 years. This is a man that went to Fort Drum 2 years ago and never, every time you talk to Patty Ritchie, she would say, the Army is pounding away to make Drum something we can all be proud of. And we all should be very proud of Patty Ritchie because she brought this to our attention and how important this was to New York. And I know from the fact that somebody who used to have a seat in this house, she's called him. When I talked to McHugh last week, he said, tell Patty Ritchie I'm going to charge her telephone cost. That's the heart and soul of the people from the North Country. But you know, when you start to think of 19,000 troops, there's not a state in this union that wouldn't strive to get it. But each and every one of us have an obligation. Every one of us know our congressman. If you don't, shame on you. And you know our senators. Shame on you. You write them about federal money for railroads and this here. About time you sat down and said, save Drum. Because when you save Drum, you save a lot for the state of New York. The Army's not going to put people in here unless they know that the people of the state of New York are really behind this. Look at what Drum's been. Many of us were there when it was Camp Drum. Then it became Fort Drum. As the general said, their children go to local schools, their hospitals are used by our people. But you know, you can talk about leaders, but if you don't have a leader who has it in his heart, you don't have a leader. We're blessed to have somebody that belongs to the Army, that belongs to us, has put his heart and soul, and he told you today what the issues are. And this country is not totally safe as everyone thinks it is. Our young men and women are on the line every day. And unless you've been in combat and had to write home and say, your son, your daughter was killed today, you'll never get the real reaction of what it is all about. General, we're very proud of you. We thank you very much for your leadership in trying to save a great military installation for the great state of New York. May God bless you and your troops.
Thank you, Senator Larkin. Senator Marcellino.
Thank you, Mr. President. General, let me echo the words of my colleagues who just spoke before me. You have my commitment. I will be on the phone as soon as this session is ended to my congresspeople and my state senators, my U.S. senators, both of whom I know well. And I will be on the phone telling them that Fort Drum and the 10th Mountain Division deserve to be kept here in New York and the North Country. You've done a hell of a job. You've always had our back. Now it's our turn to have yours, and we do.
Thank you, Senator Marcellino. Senator Farley.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, as somebody that grew up in Watertown and very familiar with Fort Drum and the area, I want to thank the General and the Fort Drum family that are here and thank them for their service. We deeply appreciate it. But I'm speaking to everybody in this room and everybody in the gallery. It is so important that we keep this facility in New York State because $1.3 billion in revenue that it brings to New York State, the largest employer in this state, and it would be devastating to this area and to this state should it be diminished. And also, that 10th Mountain Division, the most renowned fighting force I think that this nation has ever seen. Everything that they've done well, and they certainly are a credit to this state and to Fort Drum. But I think we all should be alert to the fact that we have to save Fort Drum. Contact your congressperson, contact your senators, and so forth, everybody, and that includes the people in the gallery, because Fort Drum is a huge asset to this state and something that is needed for our country. As the General said, we are in perilous times, to say the least. The trouble that is going around the world, we're going to need a fighting force, and we've got one. We can't diminish it, and I wish everybody well, and thank you for visiting us again.
Thank you, Senator Farley.